that the world can be a better place through helping each other, through building bonds, through building hope on these trying times. We as coaches, as leaders, have this invitation from life to step up and to do something about it. And we have a wonderful, wonderful presentation today. We're going to have three wonderful coaches and presenters. And I'm going to go ahead and share with you all the words, the recorded words from our own president, captain, and Dr. Shan Murthy. Let's listen to him first.
Greetings from the International Association of Coaching. Quo vadis is a Latin phrase meaning, where are you going? So quo vadis coaching means, where is coaching going? My dear friends, 2020 has been a challenging year for all of us. In an environment that is chaotic, where uncertainty is the only certainty. To ask the question, where are we going, or where coaching is going, might not be an easy question to answer. This year's theme for Quo Vadis series of webinar is coaching with hope through chaos. How can coaching provide hope through chaos? My dear friends, the IAC defines coaching as a transformative process for personal and professional awareness, discovery, and growth. When the point of reference for change is the past, the point of reference for transformation is the future. As we seek for possibilities for the future, we create hope. Join us for a series of webinars in English, Spanish, and Chinese to learn and share with coaches from all over the world to make a difference for others and to ourselves. I would like to thank all the presenters and the IAC team who have been planning and working for a few months now to make this year's Quo Vadis coaching webinar series purposeful and meaningful for each and every one of us during this time of chaos and uncertainty. Stay safe, stay blessed, wherever you are. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Shan. But we have Shan live here today to introduce this presentation of ours. So you have the floor, my dear Shan.
Thank you, Luis. Good evening, good morning, friends from wherever you're calling from or engaging with us. Thank you for participating in our Quo Vadis week. Today, we have got a great presenters, a great panel, and today they're going to have a conversation with regards to the theme of the conversation is going to be through the looking glass, reflection in the new normal. Let me introduce our panel members for today. Izabelle Zubin, she's a professional coach, certified trainer, and organizational development consultant, founder of Busy Butts company. She is from Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, and she has been helping us with the Voice magazine of the IAC. Next is Yechezckel Madanes. He is a professional and life and executive coach. He's an expert in Enneagram and MBTI, certified Robbins Madanes strategic interventionist. He is the head of the IAC research committee. And I respect the kind of work Yechezckel is doing, and he's really helping us with the research that we'll be doing a global research where Yechezckel is going to make all this happen for the IAC. And Yechezckel is from Tel Aviv, Israel. Next is Dr. Kavita Shethi. She's a coach, trainer, and consultant. She's an IAC certified masteries coach, She's got a bachelor degree in engineering. Kavita has received MTech and doctorate in management system. And Dr. Kavita is from our IEC chapter Singapore, and she's from Singapore. Yeah. So to continue, I would like to pass the floor over to Izabelle Zubin. Izabelle, all yours.
Thank you so much. It's so good to see everyone here. And I see some familiar faces in the room. I see some new faces. And I'm really excited about the fact that there are going to be people from all over the world that get access to continue watching this amazing content, right? And it is my privilege to be side by side with these people today. My lovely and most beautiful Kavita Shethi, along with Yechezckel, all the way in Tel Aviv.
Ask Vicky.
So allow me to reflect a little on the process that got the rest of us here today, right? Because where did we come together with this topic of reflection, through the looking glass in the new normal, especially? So have you heard of Alice in Wonderland? There's a famous book by Lewis Carroll. It's called Alice in Wonderland, Through the Looking Glass. And what happens to Alice is that she steps through the looking glass and enters this whole new dimension, right? She discovers things about herself that she never knew, strengths that she had along the way. And here I think, maybe Lewis Carroll was onto something, because it does take us time to look into the mirror before we can see what's within ourselves in order to help others map themselves out better too. So a little bit of background, right, about what I do. My perspective that I'm going to be bringing into this conversation is my perspective as a coach working with teams of coaches, as I'm a design thinking coach that manages programs working with multiple coaches at the same time, getting mini teams together as we run programs for like 50, 60 people at a stretch. So we coach for creativity. I also have experience since my recent qualifications with IAC as well. And I do a lot of personal coaching, working with people, yes, younger, older, doesn't really matter. What's so amazing about coaching is that as long as you speak your truth, others tend to believe you and follow you on the journey as well. And above all of that, I also actively seek coaching from others. So I don't just share this experience as a coach, but as a coachee, right? Because what is it like for the person who's sometimes sitting across and wondering, what are you going to take me through today? So let's talk a little bit about reflection. I decided to reflect on how I got here. That's how I start. That's how I like to end my conversations and all my interactions. It is such a crucial part, and it has become an integral part of everything I do, more so since I've become aware of the coaching masteries and abilities that have got me to where I am today. So for me, in my perspective, reflection to a large extent means befriending your emotions, right? And right now, let's talk about what we've experienced in 2020. For some of us, we even wonder, wait, 2020 came around already? Because I hardly felt where the year's been. Have I been locked up at home most of the time? For some of us, has it been spent in fear? Or in some cases, have we got a huge workload dumped on us because people realize that, hey, the virtual world is a lot easier to work on and I can connect with anyone at any time, right? It has been an avalanche of different kinds of emotions. For parents at home with their children, all of a sudden, 24/7. For the working adult who now has to change the way they work and see, maybe 9 to 5 isn't the way I need to work anymore, but am I really okay with it? What about those people who don't have the time to actually reflect and go, what am I okay with? What have I felt in 2020? Am I just going through the motion and through a whole bunch of activities? So in a time when all these emotions run so high, it's more important than ever to become friends with them. Especially for those of you who've had time alone when you've had to be either in movement control order in some parts of the world, or because you've been fearful to step out and you don't have family around you. What you have is yourself. And sometimes the toughest thing to do is to become friends with yourself, because it involves tirelessly looking through your experiences. And that's what reflection is, right? It's effort. It takes energy from us. It's a conscious effort. We do it from time to time subconsciously, but when we do it consciously, how does it change us? What kind of possibilities does it open up for us? And that connects pretty nicely to the coaching mastery on, opening it up for possibilities, especially when we're working with our clients. And that's why reflection is not just a single tool that you apply at any one point of time. In fact, I believe reflection is constantly happening. So reflection here is in two contexts, right? I hold the mirror up for others to see themselves, while at the same time, I have to hold a dual side mirror that reflects me. Because as I have a conversation, so let's talk about it from the coach perspective. As we have conversations with our clients, what we're doing is we're having mini reflections with ourselves, whether we realize it or not. We're constantly using those things to course correct ourselves as we think about, what does my coachee need? Even as all our attention and all our focus goes on the coachee, we're thinking about them. We're thinking, how have I perceived this emotion? How am I using this? Where are we at in the conversation? Should I leave it for a pause here? These really quick thoughts that flit through our mind are all points of mini reflections that we're having, right? And reflections, then we're talking about it having on multiple levels. Because not only do we have micro reflections, then there are those conscious reflections that happen right before I start a session. Where am I at now? How do I feel before I go into this? Am I in the right state of mind before I take participants or coaches or even my coachees through this? And then at the end of it, it's all about, what was that like for us? What was that like for me? How did this environment affect everyone's emotions? Right? So there's your big reflections, you've got your mini reflections, you're also having reflections for other people by asking questions. That's a lot going on for a coach. But the moment you become conscious about it and you practice it every day, it's like a muscle and it comes to you. It comes as a strength, right? I call it a muscle because when developed, it becomes a core strength that we use to carry a conversation through. So, for example, I sometimes take for granted how often, so I work in a business consultancy firm and I'm very lucky to work with a partner who has the same value systems as me. Kathy, I know you're in this session. I saw your name pop up just now. So I want to give her a little shout of acknowledgement because she is the ultimate reflection partner. She'll go like, okay, how was that conversation for us? Where were we at? What do we want to do with what has just happened? Even if we've had a really great conversation, a really bad conversation, we're always thinking about what worked, what didn't work, what do we want to do next, right? And don't take those people in life who give you reflection consciously and unconsciously because they are so valuable to us. So today, I actually just came back from coaching a design thinking program. And I was working with a bunch of coaches who I haven't worked with in a long time. They're all external coaches who come together to put this program. And when we work together, at the end of the day, we always have a debrief. And during this debrief, it's a reflection of three things that we like to talk about. Highs, lows, and I learned, right? So this is a reflection tool that we use in design thinking. So the highs we talk about are, okay, this is what went really, really well. And we celebrate it together. In the lows, we talk about what really hit us during the day. Where did we struggle the most? Where did we see that energy dropped, not just for us, for others, and for the people we were working with? And after going through this whole experience, suddenly one of the coaches in the room turned to me and said, wow, I really missed this. Now, for someone to say, I really miss this, shows you that it doesn't happen very often for people. And if you're someone who is constantly able to realize the state of reflection, or if you're getting there, realize that what you do is a true gift. That even reflection for yourself is the best gift that you can give to yourself. Reflection is usually done for growth. But if we look at it in today's context, reflection has become essential for survival. And it's and to reflect, the things that we need to have are vulnerability and honesty. Reflection is a practice in both. And the lesson that I have to take away from what I've shared so far is, it helps to do it with someone else. Never take it for granted. And do your best to give it to others as well. Because in a world where everything is becoming more and more fast-paced, where technology seems to be taking over everything around us, and as human beings become more important, see, as technology grows, human beings only become even more important than ever before. We want to avoid becoming activity junkies, then move without a purpose, and pause and reflect in order to live more purposefully, right? I would like to end that quick sharing with a quote. Knowledge wants to talk. Wisdom wants to listen. How willing are you to listen not only to others, but also to yourself? That's it from me. So I'd like to ask if my fellow panelists have anything they want to share, or they'd like to comment about what I've just shared as well.
Yes. Thank you for sharing that, Izabelle. That was great. And I really can relate to your everything that you said. I would like to point especially the befriending your emotions and the avalanche of emotions. Yeah, and the going through the motions. I think those are really critical aspects that are kind of foundational of the mindfulness aspects that you were talking about. Because as we've been talking the other day, remember from our conversations, you cannot see the picture when you are in the picture. So this stepping back, I think it's really very important that you mentioned it. Because it's if you're not able to stop in front of this avalanche of emotions, the conscious reflection that you are proposing, I think is really critical.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
What I really loved about what you said were, you used a couple of words which really resonated with me. And I think they resonate really well with our masteries too. You used honesty and you used vulnerability. And I think both those tie in so beautifully to our mastery number one, right? The way we look at the world, the way we coach, and the fact that we as coaches, through this reflection, open ourselves and open the minds of our coachees or our clients to being vulnerable, to looking at the mirror, at the reflection with honesty. That really, really resonated with me. And also what resonated with me was the highs and the lows, because none of us is perfect. We are not perfect as coaches, we are not perfect as human beings. But when we do reflect with complete vulnerability and honesty on the highs and the lows, that's what makes us whole. That's what makes us complete. So love that, Izabelle. Love that perspective completely.
Oh, thank you, Kavita. I think languaging to ourselves and with others is an essentially powerful tool for reflection. So when you highlighted that, there was another tool that came to mind that I would really like to share with everyone. And it's something we also use in design thinking, which is I like, I wish, and I learned. So I like is everything that went really well. And then I wish is usually the space that you want to improve, but it's really important that you put it as a wish, because then you're thinking about the future and how you make it actionable. So when you reflect, it's about once you reflect and once you're faced with this information, you're sure to do something with it. So language plays a huge trust. And I'm going to put that down into the chat for anyone else who wants to have a look through and see what those tools are like. In the meantime, I think it's a great segue to hand it over to the last person who just spoke, Kavita.
Thank you, Izabelle. Thank you so much for, once again, thank you very much for that insightful sharing. And like I said, I just love the perspective. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to shift the gear a little bit, keeping the perspective on reflection, but keeping it a little bit more in perspective of the work that I do. I spend a lot of time with organizations and with leaders, working both as a coach and as a consultant. And like you very rightly said, Izabelle, 2020 exposed a lot of emotions, and each one of us befriended these emotions in different ways, different, we took back different things, we were challenged by different things. And during the course of my work in 2020, a number of phrases were thrown around. Okay, we heard the new normal, we heard the new world order. Lots of these terms, got written about. You got read articles about them, and so on and so forth. For me, at the root cause of all these phrases were some very, very key concerns about two very critical aspects: concerns about business health and about self-care. And all these concerns, they were rooted in words like change, chaos, uncertainty, and anxiety. Undoubtedly, 2020 has been a year in which there's been a shift in the business, a shift in, there's been a complete paradigm shift. And this paradigm shift has left organizations and leaders within these organizations in a state of flux. And today, I think, and I thank the ISC for the opportunity for us to, discuss and surface questions like, how do we continue to function as leaders? How do we continue to function as coaches when the entire dynamic in the workforce has changed? This new normal, as is so often called, really demands a fresh approach, especially where people are concerned. That's the key, people. And from my perspective, I think that one of the most effective leadership models, which is going to emerge from this, is going to be based on coaching. Coaching to help us find new solutions and new ways to work. And from what the work that I did, and for us, 2020 came with it, just like Izabelle said, with a lot of work, a lot of coaching, helping organizations. And coaching in this new normal was exemplified definitely by trust, by empathy, by ownership, and most certainly by reflection. And that is how, when we were coming up with this topic, as Izabelle said, we precipitated into this whole piece about reflection. Because everything today is about leaders becoming coaches who engage with their people, who empower their people. And in times of this physical isolation where people are at home, the ability to connect with people has never been more important, right? And when we think back and we reflect and say, where is this all going? What is the future going to hold for us? One of the things that comes really clearly is that the future belongs to leaders and to companies that are able to collaborate, are able to co-create as opposed to separate. That's one of the key takeaways for me as a coach and as a consultant that the year has taught me. The people that are able to build these bridges across functions, bridges across cultures, bridges across countries. And remember, the bridges that we are building are now virtual. The world is shrinking. It's shrinking, not physically, but it's shrinking virtually. And by putting into place conversation skills, the coaching conversation skills, we are really looking to find new solutions. When this new normal came, a lot of organizations were taken by surprise. And remote work was not by choice. It was not remote training or remote team training that people were prepared. It came in, they were ill prepared for this. Some people had technology, some people didn't have technology. And most of the workforce, or even our clients on one-on-one coaching, they felt a huge lack of control, a lot of anxiety, both at a personal level and at a professional level. And the fact that, things like Izabelle very rightly mentioned, working from home, office space not being available, caused even more anxiety. And these people started looking externally at coaches or their leaders to help them find solutions. But the paradox here was that the coaches and the leaders themselves were trying to balance that act of being visible, of being present, of being empathetic, while at the same time meeting the very bare necessities, the operational demands of business, and also coping with their own personal challenges. Now, that was a huge paradox that was being created. Performance anxiety was being, I'm not going to spend time on performance anxiety, and that's a huge topic by itself, but it was also on the rise, right? And the trust, this whole trust between managers and employees and coaches was getting eroded at a baseline level. And that, really again brings us to my favorite mastery. That's mastery number 1, of establishing and maintaining that trust. Now, in this time, let's talk of leader as a coach. That's my passion. A leader as a coach, and all of us bringing out the coach within ourselves. What do they really need to focus their energies on? When the instinctive response to that question is keeping businesses afloat, keeping people in their jobs. Absolutely. Completely agree with that. There's absolutely no doubt in my mind that that is important. But the need for leaders to be authentic, be able to be honest, and as I love those words, vulnerable, honesty, to be able to walk that fine line was very, very important. But all leaders cognitively and all coaches cognitively understand this. From my sense, from working with my clients, is that in reality, they feel that leaders and coaches are not working towards creating a co-created, sort of success or a co-created solution. So time has now come, just like Izabelle said, even as leaders, as coaches, we must take a step back, look in the mirror, think about and reevaluate our actions. And more important than actions, really reevaluate our conversations. The need to recalibrate, and I love my 3 R's, the need to recalibrate, the need to realign, and the need to reassure cannot be understated. And this becomes, once again, very important from both a coach and a client perspective. This really brings back, to my mind the words "know thyself." The words "know thyself" date back to ancient Greece. They are the first of the 3 Delphic maxims which are inscribed at the Temple of Apollo. It's not new. And as an executive coach, I completely, buy into, I completely attest the value of self-awareness in leadership and in coaching. And if I were to select one skill that I want to work with the leaders that I coach, it would be self-awareness, because that is the foundation of most leadership skills, positive thoughts, and of self-awareness. For that, in my mind, self-awareness comes by listening to ourselves, listening to others. And, all of us are very familiar with our mastery number 3, so I'm not really going to be talking about engaged listening, but I cannot stress enough the importance of it. It is really important. It is very, very important. All our masteries are important. And I'd just like to take a couple of minutes more to sort of emphasize my own learning that surprisingly, the question, the why question, is very ineffective when it comes to self-awareness. Research has shown, that we simply do not have access to many of our unconscious thoughts, feelings, motives that we are searching for with the why question. Because we are so trapped inside our conscious awareness, we tend to invent these answers. We tend to talk to ourselves. We feel what we are saying is true, but that's more often than not true. Another consequence of asking this why question when we are doing this really important piece on reflection is when we are trying to explain an undesired outcome. What it does is it really invites unproductive negative thoughts. Let me give you an example. I'm getting a little carried away here, but let me give you an example of myself outside of my workplace. And I'm going to be very vulnerable here and share this with you. 10 years ago, I was diagnosed with cancer. And in that downward spiral that I was in post the prognosis, all I could ask myself was, why? Why did this happen to me? Why did I get cancer? And believe you me, this chain of self-reflection led me nowhere. More often than not, all I did was landed on explanations that focused on my fears, that focused on my anxieties, rather than a rational assessment of my reality, my strength, and my possibility. That's what the masteries speak to us as coaches. And I didn't do that. All I was going was why? Instead of saying, what, which is the powerful question. The question of what can I do now? When I started asking myself the what questions in reflection, it helped me invite possibility. It helped me stay objective And it empowered me to move on, to do things which I possibly never even dreamed of earlier. Now, the reason I shared this example with you was, because I really, in 2020, have drawn so many parallels between the current environment and what we need to do to coach in this environment and what I went through 10 years ago. When we are faced with unprecedented challenges, what the year 2020 has brought, or through an unforeseen illness, or through any circumstance which is outside of our control, that's when we really need to do this self-reflection. And that is exactly what is happening today. So as coaches, we really need to go back to the understanding of the fundamental model, and I love this model of change, a model that's called SARA. And what does SARA stand for? It talks about the stages of how we as human beings accept change. S stands for shock. That's the first stage. A stands for anger. R stands for rejection. Like I said, why me, right? Then comes A for acceptance. And finally, the beautiful word that ISC has coined this year, hope. That's the H in SARA. Hope that things will be better. Hope that leads to discovery. Hope that leads to growth, especially in these times of change. And I do know that I have to hand over to Yechezckel and open this to my discussion to my peers. And I'm coming to the end of my time slot really, really quickly. But what I really want to end with is something which is very dear to me. That is, it is very, very important for us as coaches to realize that the world has changed. We cannot be in denial. And as coaches in the new normal, we need to take that step out to meet ourselves, to have that reflection, to meet our clients where we are and where they are today. We can't go back. We can only go forward. And as coaches, our goal is to help our clients succeed in this new reality. And, if I just sit back and end on something which says that the current crisis may have served as a trigger for us to really look at what do we do as coaches and what do we need to do differently. All right. With that, I'm just sort of going to, I can go on talking for the next 1 hour on this. I'm so passionate about it. But I'll open this to both Izabelle and Yechezckel on your comments.
Wow. Thanks for that sharing on your personal reflection, Jenny, Kavita. I mean, that is reflection in action, right? That vulnerability and honesty that you just gave to the rest of us is something I want to show deep appreciation for, because through that, you allow the rest of us to learn so much as well. And that's a beautiful thing. It also drew to me the fact that you mentioned the word trust, and I really like that. That was a centrifuge to what you were talking about when it came to the relationship between the organization across the managers and employees, and how with whatever that's been going on, because of the stresses through no one's fault, probably on the different levels, it all gets eroded, right? We don't want it to get eroded. We don't intend for it to, but it happens. And then that makes me think about how I've actually had clients approach me on an organizational level, seeking conversations to trigger collective reflection. And that's a data point for me that shows, wow, what you're saying is so true. Because everyone is looking for these things, how to bridge that gap between the different levels, but using reflection as a way to do that, right? And that's the power. So we looked at individual reflection earlier, and now you brought us very nicely into group reflection and how it brings connection to people. And then you mentioned the mastery of inviting possibility. As a coach, we need to invite possibility for a coachee, right? For those who are not part of the IAC group, this is something you'd be able to learn and be able to look up on when you become part of the community, right? So on top of inviting possibility, I think of the mastery of processing the present. And absolutely. Then I guess I'd end it on, for me, how these two connect and with your sharing is be in the now, dream of the possibilities of the future. Thank you.
Well, I was impressed by the masterful demonstration. Also, I share with Izabelle what she just said, And I really acknowledge you for your honesty and the vulnerability. And I would also pick this idea of the leaders needing to through this struggle become stronger, and this sense of responsibility, fighting with their own anxiety. I loved how you tied it with your own personal example. You showed through this openness the power of honesty and trust, and how your own spirit of non-giving up was very powerful, very inspiring. I really thank you for sharing that, and how you modeled in a way the way this is supposed to happen. I really love that, and I thank you so much for the powerful sharing.
Excellent. Thank you, guys. I mean, I just, to be honest, Izabelle and Yechezckel, I got that right? I've been trying to get that right. Yechezckel, right? We've shared some really lovely moments putting this panel together, and I think every time we've talked about it, we've come up with a new set. But I think the key thread here is the thread on reflection, and that's and we owe that to Izabelle to come up with this gorgeous title of reflection, right? So I think keeping time in mind, let's hand it over to you, Yechezckel. Let's hear
Thank
from
you
you
very
to tie
much.
it all up. Excellent.
Thank you so much. Well, Yechezckel Madanes here, and I want to thank, of course, the IAC and all the great people in the IAC. Izabelle and Kavita, thank you so much for your sharing. It's really nice to hear about what you've been doing and how you both use your expertise in this new normal. Very insightful, and as always, I always come up with the interactions with you with some new pieces of learning and things to reflect on. So thanks so much. And looking back at what both Izabelle and Kavita were saying, I'd love to pick it from one central idea, which is the idea of holding, as Izabelle put it, let me paraphrase her words, holding the mirror up, okay, for yourself. And it comes to mind a very powerful quote. So I'd like to take it from there. A powerful quote from R.D. Laing, which says like this. I will paste it on the chat so you can have it at hand, because it's such a powerful quote. And this all relates to this holding the mirror up, okay, and the self-reflection. So the quote says like this: the range of what we think and do is limited, okay? It's limited. What we think and do is limited, but what we fail to notice, listen to this, what we are able to think and do is limited, but what we fail to notice, what we don't notice. And because we fail to notice that we fail to notice, there is little we can do to change until we notice how failing to notice shapes our thoughts and deeds. First time I read this, it was like, oh my goodness, what is this? This holding the mirror, this holding up the mirror for yourself on steroids. This is so shocking, right? What I'm not able to see is actually conditioning me, and I'm not even able that this is conditioning, this is limiting me. So this is a very powerful theme and a very powerful foundation of self-reflection that as we were talking and preparing this presentation and speaking about it in different ways, like the fish in the water cannot see the water, right? You ask a fish, tell me, how is the water? It's a what water, right? Because the fish is in the water, so it's like being in the picture. So if you are in the picture, you cannot see the picture because you are in it. It's too close to us. So this exercise in holding up the mirror is also like a metaphor. It's very useful, right? And holding up the mirror for myself, look at the mirror as Kavita said. I would emphasize the other part also, right? This is the hand holding up the mirror, and I would emphasize the other thing that you mentioned, Kavita, would just take a step back. So you hold the mirror up, and you take the step back, because then you can begin to, go out of the picture a little bit. You go out of the picture, right? And why is all this so important? Because, and then here addressing again what Kavita said, we as coaches need to deal with our own anxieties, our own problems. We are also human beings dealing with all this mess. And we need to recalibrate, look inside, hold up the mirrors, take a step back. What's going on? How am I dealing with this? How am I managing my own anxiety regarding all this? So we can come better prepared to coach and help other people. Like, it's a bit of the concept of putting your oxygen mask first, because otherwise you cannot help other people. And there is a scientific foundation to this idea, which was demonstrated by Dr. Yechezckel Madanes from the Madanes Institute in California, with whom I have the great honor of being collaborating with him for almost a decade. And he said, how can you predict the success of any endeavor? How can you predict the success, in this case, of our coaching, the success of our own coaches? Dr. Madanes says success is always a function of external integration, all the things that we are doing, right, to succeed in the world, divided, fragmented, right, divided, diluted by internal disintegration. How well or how badly are we disintegrating inside? Meaning, you can do a lot in the external world to try to cope with COVID and the new normal, but that gets diluted by what's going on inside of yourself. Relating back to what Kavita said, if you are struggling with anxiety as a leader and you cannot cope successfully with this, you won't be that coach that can help others powerfully, because you yourself are disintegrating. And here it's something very interesting. Dr. Madanes went on with 40 years of research, and he demonstrated something very, very fascinating. We said, right, that I can do a lot of things externally, and that will get diluted by my own internal disintegration. He said that energy, predictably, in a human being, energy predictably gets allocated. Meaning, if I have energy, like we all have 24 hours a day, we all have a certain amount of energy, but that energy goes first to your internal disintegration. It always goes first. So if I'm struggling with anxiety, I'm fears, and that, so that energy will go first to that. That will consume my energy, my vital energy. And what's left, if there's anything left, will go outside to deal with the world, right? To adapt. So I may be doing all kinds of external activities to adapt, like, creating virtual teams, setting up new working routines, restructuring my company, going to the bank to secure funds for the next year to keep operating until my cash flow stabilizes, anything, all the things that I can do, external actions. But if internally I am anxious and fearful, I'm disorganized, my emotions are a mess, my beliefs are a mess, my health is a mess, that internal disintegration will sabotage all my external efforts, because energy, again, predictably gets allocated. Okay? All the energy that you have available will go first, will be consumed, drained by those internal problems. So that's where the power of self-reflection, that's, by the way, that's not always conscious. That's why I'm coming back to the quote I sent. What we think and do is limited by we fail to notice. Sometimes we don't even know that what exactly is going on. That's where we need to use mastery number 4 and invite self-reflection. So we said, okay, what's going on? Let's hold up the mirror. Let's see what's inside. Let's see what's going on. Okay. And because my background is in the Enneagram system of personality in my school, I like to reflect in a way for efficiency and effectiveness in three main areas. So we mentioned the thinking, right? But the anxieties and emotions. So I can say, okay, if I hold up the mirror, I can say what's going on inside myself. What's going on now? What am I thinking right now? Oh, the world is going to end. What is going to be what am I going to do? I'm so in such a weak position. Oh, this is what about this? What about that? This is my thinking. Now if I do this, the stepping back, I can suddenly become aware of that and how that is creating a lot of toxic negative emotions in myself and how that is impacting in my body. Okay, so we through the self-reflection, we suddenly bring into consciousness that that otherwise we would be failing to notice. And because we fail to notice all that, there's nothing we can do to change. We are in this autopilot existence. Waking up in the morning, oh no, look at the news, intoxicating my mind again, my mindset, my beliefs, reading the news, nonstop. I remember Pepe, our dear Pepe del Rio, in one of the previous Quo Vadis last year, talking about what are you doing with all this news reading all day? You read all that, you're just, poisoning your mind. So your thinking becomes poison. Then your emotion, then suddenly, and this all this goes below your awareness, then your your emotions get poisoned by this thinking, and then your body is like this, and you don't have any strength left to deal with your life. So self-reflection allows you through Mastery 4. We first put our oxygen mask uh, um, in ourselves. We become aware of our own thinking. We become mindful of what's going on in our mind, what's going on in our emotion, how is my body reacting to all this, taking care of these dimensions, working on this, whether is, and then you go into your mind and you say, okay, design thinking. Izabelle, how can you? That was fascinating. Teach me more about that, because then let's see what I can do with my mind to make it more effective and efficient, optimize it. How can I discover my limiting beliefs, clarifying, okay? Working with my emotions. Suddenly now I can become more aware of it and say, okay, this is what I need to do. I step back, hold the mirror up, and I see this all this anxiety. I need to work with this. I need to find a way to work with this, right? That Kavita, as Kavita was saying, recalibrating, realigning. But the first act, the previous act, because of this failing to notice, is the holding up the mirror. So you can discover all that is going on, in the back of your mind. And from there, because time is short, I would need just wrapping this idea up. Um, what I love to do after this self-reflection act is immediately connecting it with mastery number 8, the inviting of possibility. And that's and why is that? Because the moment you become aware uh, um, of who you are, what's going on inside yourself, the moment you become aware of all that, and you are able to actually be on top of that, instead of you being a slave of your thoughts and your emotions and your anxiety and all that, you become the master of it. You own yourself. A new world of possibilities open up. That's how we invite possibilities from this new place, from this new you. We what possibilities arise now? Okay, we have now enhanced our coaches' awareness regarding the options that can be accessed. And I love to wrap this idea up. And of course, I would like to invite you all to use the masteries, and in particular, these two masteries in this way, to experiment with your clients using this particular sequence. And we'd love to hear your comments and your feedback on that anytime. And so now I'd love to ask again the opinion of my dear colleagues, Izabelle and Kavita. If you have anything to say regarding on top of what I just shared.
I love the visualization that your words brought in my mind. When you're talking about this energy being directed inwards and fragmented, everything getting fragmented within us with this anxiety. I could see myself and my client in little pieces of a jigsaw puzzle, kind of putting, coming back and then realigning themselves and fixing themselves so that they're able to be whole within and then be able to deal with the external challenges, which is what the whole world is talking about today. I love the visualization. Absolutely. Really nice. Um, Isabel, your thoughts?
Yeah. So for me, it was what I found particularly interesting, or what really struck me, right, was when you spoke about how energy predictably gets allocated to internal disintegration. So whatever energy you have basically goes to all the struggles that you're feeling right now. And what we don't realize is, so for example, if it's me, I'm talking about myself, I'm my own vampire, sucking and draining my own energy by failing to reflect. Because without this reflection, I can't integrate internally.
Yeah.
And when I can't integrate, I'm draining myself. So this simple act, and what I took away from this, can save me and grow my body physically, mentally, emotionally. It's multiple levels. And it's not indirect either. We're here with the studies that you shared, it's pretty much a direct relation when it comes to the physicality of your being as well. So how tired you feel, I mean, that was a great reflection for me after coming from a long day, coming into this session, like, wow, what are some of the thoughts that I have right now that are causing me to disintegrate and suck my own energy? It's a great way for me to end my day. And just to also end on this note, I guess overall, between the three of us sharing, it's been such a wonderful experience, right? The three of us from different countries in the world. I mean, myself in Malaysia, Kavita in Singapore, Yechezckel in Tel Aviv. We came together and somehow created a cohesively yet unique story to weave into a beautiful tapestry.
Isabel, before you end off, if I could just pick up on two things that our colleagues and our peers are sharing with us. I don't, Jafar, have I got your name right? I love that piece that you've written, that the best mirror for reflection is the person who sits in front of you, your coachee, but also anybody who sits in front of you, which really brings me back to that piece of listening to others. A lot of times we are always hearing each other, and this mirror cannot also, it doesn't necessarily have to be shown by us. So that's a great piece. And also for Margarita, right? Is that your correct name? In terms of I love that. It's not when the energy need not be negative, and that is so critical. And that ties up with my personal experience, that sometimes that allocation of energy can be so draining that you really need everything that you have in you to have that honesty and say, oh, this is what the mirror is telling me. Am I even open enough to listen to it? And that really actually is really the foundation of the growth mindset that we are all talking about now. The willingness to learn, the willingness to accept, the willingness to be authentic with ourselves as coaches and with our coaches. Thank you for that, observations on our conversations. Really appreciate that. Oh, back to you, Isabel.
Actually, yeah, I would love to hear what everyone else is trying to say in the chat box and see if there's anything we could say. So Ed Britton mentions that at a distance, you three think together so well. A current need is to effectively build cohesive collegiality and collaboration in virtual networks. He'd love to know our thoughts about effective attitudes and approaches to building cohesiveness in virtual networks. What an interesting question. So I guess that's just more of our personal experience on working together.
Absolutely. So this whole thing about virtual networks, and the key to these virtual networks are these virtual networks, nobody's been trained on them anymore. We have people who are even struggling how to work the internet in today's world. So the whole aspect of behavior, and that comes back to the fact of what can we do to build that trust. That's my take on this entire virtual, and that's what I've been working with my clients. What really is getting, this whole thing about building collaboration in virtual networks when people are not even prepared for the virtual networks. I worked a lot with large multinational companies where virtual teams were a norm. right? And we worked with them, and they knew how to work with each other. They knew the ground rules. They had the systems. They have the back end systems, everything in place. But today, none of that exists. There are companies who have no idea of how to even work a Zoom call. They're struggling with how to share a screen. And how does one really build that? And that is a constant struggle. I honestly speaking, don't have a direct answer to that, but that is something I think we as coaches really need to work and, work with the people that we work with and see what we can come up with to build that trust. I think that's the foundation in my mind.
Right. Listening to you, Kavita, what comes to mind with the Ed's question is I immediately think about two aspects that need to be installed, to be put in place to build this kind of trust. And one is the technical part, and the other is a sensitivity part. Because different people, there are many people that work out like with a low-tech background, and that's an opportunity we can use to show this kind of patience, this kind of, because some people may require some, more patience to be integrated into this new system, these new platforms. There are different preferences. There are people that are way better now, the more introverted personalities that actually feel very comfortable not meeting other people. And there are other having, having different orientations, having problems because particularly because of the inability to connect through this new network. So I think there are two components. There are like a more administrative part of it, more technical, which is the training, and then it needs to come together with the human strategy. And so the two things integrated, because otherwise you would be doing something which is either very technical, sending these are the instructions to log into, so you destroy the culture in this way. This new culture needs to have these two components, not the only ones, but I would emphasize them as the first components, which are the technical part and the human consideration. Because and then if you do it correctly, you build this kind of collegiality and collaboration that Ed Britton is asking about. Because you'll use it as an opportunity to perform what Kavita has been saying. You are building the trust. Okay, you are a very we value your input. We value your collaboration, and we have enough patience to train you, to teach you the technical tools and we have enough patience, of course we need to perform, we need to be effective, we need to be fast enough, but we are willing to as a group move all of us together, so we can because we keep this collegiality and this collaborative mindset, this approach in mind. That's my take regarding Ed's question.
Excellent. Thank you. I know we are just about at the end of our time, but I would like to, sort of address what Gonzalo has said. Yeah. And that, Gonzalo, in my experience, I am actually very blessed to be one of the 5 master coaches of trained by Professor Gert Hofstede at Cross-Cultural Collaboration. And one of the things that I have noticed is this whole the whole aspect of the culture of punishing, the culture of not speaking, the culture of not being able to say, I don't know, across the globe. And that in itself manifests into, when we're talking about the world shrinking, into people coming up with, from different cultures, because in some cultures it's absolutely all right to say, I don't know. But in some cultures, it is absolutely not all right to say, I don't know. And how does one, as the world is shrinking, how does one sort of move from a culture of not punishing the mistake, or, or as we say, learning from mistakes, having the growth mindset, a lot of that. And I think the world is moving towards that space. The whole aspect, I'm working with a lot of clients now on a consulting basis where we are removing the entire performance management. I mean, performance management does not exist. We're talking about performance conversations, and the whole year I've worked with a large client on moving everything into performance conversations, which happen every day on the spot in the present. And I think it's a slow move, but the realization that it is necessary and the weight of that realization, I think, lies on all of us to, to kind of spread the word as much as we can, because that culture of, punishing is not going to get us anywhere. We realize it cognitively, we know it, and yes, it is definitely difficult to do.
Thank you.
Well, this has been a wonderful, wonderful, effervescent conversation. I'm going to bring you girls and guys back to the group. Hold on just a second for us to say a good day and a goodbye today. I myself feel so complete. Let me share just briefly this feeling that I have. I grew up in America. I've lived in America all of my life, but the IAC has brought to my personal experience a very powerful sense of togetherness. When I listen to my colleagues and friends from Asia, from Africa, from Europe, from all over the world, I feel complete. This is kind of my feeling this morning. I feel complete. And on behalf of the International Association of Coaching, I send you all a big hug, an embrace, just for us to feel together. We're not alone in this thing. We have a lot of resources and we have ourselves. And by the way, everyone here is a beautiful and powerful mirror to see ourselves, to see our needs, to see our uncertainty, and to find again our hope. Friends, you all have a rest of the evening, a beautiful rest of the evening. The rest of us in America, we're starting a day. A big hug, everyone. And I would kindly ask everyone, if you don't mind, this is a very Latin thing. I'm Latin, all right? To open our mics and celebrate somehow. Make noises. Just put together our hands. Open those microphones and make a noise. All right?
Camera.
Thank you, everyone. A lovely, lovely day. Bye-bye.
Thank you very
Bye.
much.
Bye. Good night and
So
good
much.
morning.
Thank you for
Good night,
having
Good night,
us.
good morning, good
Thank
afternoon,
you.
whatever part of the world you're in.
Good
And
morning.
shout out to Izabelle and
Great
Yechezckel.
conversation.
Bye.
Thank you, Kavita. Bye, Yechezckel.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thanks, Louis. Thanks, Sean.
Been a
Thanks,
privilege.
Charlie. Thank you very much. Thanks,